Create file description. Creating Part 1 of the HFY sci-fi story. Path Home Claude Part 1.md file. Text. Humanity withdraws from diplomacy. Throwing the Galaxy Council into chaos, the Grand Council Chamber of the Galactic Confederation hung suspended in the void between stars. A massive crystalline structure that gleamed like a captured nova. Inside, representatives of 2,000 species sat in concentric rings, their voices a cacophony of clicks, whistles, and electromagnetic pulses as they debated the latest crisis. Ambassador Alara Voss stood alone on the central platform, her simple gray uniform stark against the ornate regalia of the alien delegates. The 7-member High Council loomed above her on floating pedestals, their forms obscured by ceremonial light shrouds. The human delegation has submitted formal notice of withdrawal from all diplomatic relations with the Confederation, announced High Councilor Zirvax, his translucent appendages rippling with agitation. Ambassador Voss has been granted one final audience to explain this unprecedented action. Murmurs cascaded through the chamber. Earth, a relatively new addition to galactic society, had rapidly become essential to Confederation economics and scientific advancement. Their withdrawal threatened to destabilize centuries of carefully balanced power. Alara's voice cut through the chamber without technological amplification, a skill that unsettled many delegates. For 3 centuries, humanity has participated in good faith within your systems. We have contributed technologies, resources, and cultural exchange. In return, we have been systematically marginalized, our colonies restricted, our innovations exploited. The holographic display behind her flickered to life, displaying a series of star charts. Yesterday, without consultation, the Confederation approved mining rights in the Procyon sector, a region containing 3 human colony worlds, to the Drell Consortium. High Councilor Tavlor rose, mandibles clicking rapidly. The Procyon territories were never officially recognized as human protectorates. The decision falls within established protocols. Alara smiled, the expression sending a ripple of discomfort through the alien delegates who recognized the human expression as one that historically preceded conflict. As of 0600 Universal Standard Time, humanity has activated the Helios Protocol, she stated calmly. Panic erupted in the chamber. The Helios Protocol was a theoretical defensive system humanity had proposed years earlier, a system the Council had dismissed as technologically unfeasible. You're bluffing, hissed Councilor Merrick. Your species lacks the resources to... Alara tapped her wrist terminal once. Throughout the chamber, every technological system simultaneously flickered. Just for a second, but long enough to make the message clear. Humanity is withdrawing from the Confederation, effective immediately. We will maintain our borders. We will defend our interests. And we will no longer be bound by agreements that are enforced selectively against us. As Alara turned to leave, Zirvax's voice rose in alarm. The Confederation cannot function without Earth's quantum communication network. The economic disruption alone will, and you should have considered that, Alara said over her shoulder, before you decided humans were expendable. Admiral Marcus Donovan watched the broadcast from the bridge of the EDF Sentinel, Earth's flagship hidden in the shadow of Jupiter. 300 ships of the Earth Defense Fleet had been stationed throughout the solar system. Concealed from Confederation sensors by technology the aliens didn't know humans possessed. She did it, whispered his executive officer, Commander Rivera. The Council will never back down after that display. They don't need to back down, Donovan replied. They just need to understand the new reality. On the tactical display, alarm markers flashed as Confederation systems began failing across the galaxy. The quantum communication network that Earth had generously shared with the Confederation was shutting down. Node by node, transportation hubs, banking systems, medical networks, all faltering as the hidden protocols embedded within them activated. Admiral, the communications officer called out, we're receiving reports from our embassies. 17 Confederation worlds are already experiencing complete system failures. Emergency services are overwhelmed. Donovan's jaw tightened. This was the part he hated, the collateral damage. Deploy the emergency response packages as planned. Make sure the affected civilian populations know who's helping them, while their own government fails to respond. Across the galaxy, pre-positioned human aid ships emerged from hiding, bringing relief to worlds suddenly thrown into chaos. It was a calculated move, demonstrate both humanity's power and mercy simultaneously. On the main view screen, a Confederation battle group appeared, moving toward the Sol system. Right on schedule, Donovan muttered. Looks like the Hawks won the first debate. Orders, sir? Commander Rivera asked. Let them come. But activate the Helios perimeter. If they cross the boundary, they've made their choice. Director Imani Okafor stood in the Situation Room beneath Geneva, watching dozens of holographic displays tracking the cascading effects of humanity's withdrawal. 3 centuries of planning had come down to this moment. 3 centuries of embedding backdoors, gathering intelligence, positioning assets, and preparing for the inevitable confrontation. Director, we've confirmed that the Council is gathering an emergency session, reported her deputy, Thomas Reeves. Our sources indicate they're considering a military response. Okafor nodded. And the archive? And transmitted to all human colonies and our allied species. If anything happens to Earth, the full history of Confederation manipulation and exploitation goes public to every world simultaneously. Turned to a display showing the faces of 20 alien species, the supposed Warminer, racism of the Confederation, who had secretly allied with humanity after suffering similar treatment, to inform our partners that Phase 2 is authorized. Their representatives should withdraw from Council proceedings within the next 12 hours. Let's see how the Confederation handles losing 30% of its economic base at once. A junior analyst approached nervously. Director, we've intercepted communications from the Drell Consortium. They're mobilizing to seize the Procyon colonies while they believe we're focused on Earth's defense. Okafor's expression didn't change, but her eyes hardened. Activate Special Response Team Theta. The Drell need to understand what happens when you threaten human worlds. Counselor Jemba paced in his private chambers, 4 arms clasped behind his back in the posture of extreme distress. The emergency council session had devolved into chaos, with the military faction led by the Vex Imperium demanding immediate action against Earth, while the economic coalition warned of complete galactic collapse if human systems remained offline. His private communicator, one not connected to the failing Confederation network, chimed softly. Only 3 beings in the galaxy had that contact protocol. The humans have outplayed us, haven't they? He asked without preamble. Ambassador Alara's face appeared in the projection. This was never a game, Jemba. You've seen the evidence I provided over the years. The Confederation has been corrupted, the founding principles abandoned. And your solution is to bring everything crashing down? And our solution is to force a reset. Already, 17 worlds have reported popular uprisings against Confederation governance. Your people could be next if the hardliners continue pushing for war. Jemba's skin rippled with blue patterns of anxiety. The Vex fleet has already launched. They won't listen to reason, and we know. We've been tracking them since they left space dock. Alara's expression softened slightly. You should prepare for what happens next. It will look extreme, but I promise you there will be minimal loss of life. What are you planning? In about 6 hours, the most powerful military force in the Confederation will discover just how deeply we've compromised their systems. Her image began to fade. Choose your side carefully, old friend. History is being written today. Talon Reed, intelligence officer attached to the human embassy on Centauri Prime, moved silently through the darkened archives. With the Confederation in chaos, security systems had defaulted to basic protocols he had helped design during his Durer's advisory role years earlier. The central data core hummed as he inserted a specialized key, bypassing the remaining safeguards. For 15 years, he had suspected that the original treaty between Earth and the Confederation contained clauses that had been hidden from human representatives. Now was his chance to confirm it. The holographic display flickered to life, showing the original document and the secret annexes that had never been revealed to humanity. Contingency plans for containment and resource acquisition of human territories. He read aloud, his voice tight with anger. Timeline for gradual technology appropriation. Genetic evaluation for potential servant race status. It was worse than they had suspected. The Confederation had never intended to accept humanity as equals. From the very beginning, Earth had been marked for eventual subjugation. Talon copied the files and sent them through a secure channel to Director Okafor. This evidence would justify everything that was about to happen. Behind him, the door slid open. 2 Confederation security officers stood in the entrance, weapons drawn. "Human," the lead officer growled. "You are in violation, O. Create the file description, creating Part 2 of the HFY sci-fi story. Path, Home, Claude Part 2 MD, File, Text. Humanity withdraws from diplomacy, throwing the Galaxy Council into chaos." Part 2 Admiral Marcus Donovan stood motionless on the bridge of the EDF Sentinel, his eyes fixed on the tactical display. The Vex battle fleet, 47 warships comprising the most fearsome military force in the Confederation, had just crossed the boundary of the Helios defensive perimeter. Alarms remained silent. No warnings had been issued. The Vex commander, confident in overwhelming firepower, had dismissed humanity's supposed defensive capabilities as a bluff. "They've crossed the line," Commander Rivera reported unnecessarily. The tension on the bridge was palpable. Donovan nodded once. "Activate Helios Protocol, Stage 1. No weapons fired. No energy barriers appeared. Instead, throughout the Vex fleet, ship after ship suddenly lost power. Propulsion systems, weapons arrays, life support, all shutting down simultaneously as dormant code hidden in their operating systems awakened. The massive dreadnought leading the formation drifted helplessly, its momentum carrying it forward while its crew frantically attempted to restore basic functions. "All Vex vessels disabled," Admiral reported the tactical officer. "Will life support systems remain operational on minimal power as programmed? Let's open a channel to their flagship," Donovan ordered. The view screen flickered to life, showing the Vex commander, a towering figure with iridescent scales and 4 eyes that glowed with barely contained fury. "What have you done?" the commander demanded, mandibles clicking rapidly in agitation. Donovan's expression remained impassive. "Exactly what we warned the Council we would do if threatened. Your ships will remain disabled for 24 hours, enough time for rescue vessels to reach you. When systems restore, you'll have limited propulsion to return to Confederation space." "This is an act of war." "No, Admiral," Donovan countered. "An act of war was sending your fleet into our sovereign territory after our formal withdrawal from the Confederation. Consider this mercy." The communication ended and Donovan turned to his executive officer. "Deploy rescue shuttles with humanitarian supplies. I want every Vex crew member to understand exactly who kept them alive today." On screens throughout the Sol system, the image of the disabled Vex Armada was broadcast to all human worlds and colonies. The message was clear. The most powerful military in the galaxy had been neutralized without a single shot fired. Director Imani Okafor reviewed the latest intelligence reports with grim satisfaction. The Helios Protocol had worked perfectly against the Vex fleet, but that was merely one move in a much larger game. "The Procyon situation?" she asked her deputy. Thomas Reeves expanded a tactical display showing the contested colony worlds. Special Response Team Theta intercepted the Drell forces before they reached the colonies. Similar to the Vex, their ships experienced complete systems failure. The difference is we've kept them disabled and our forces have boarded their command vessels. And we've recovered documentation proving the Drell were acting under direct orders from the Inner Council, specifically Councillor Merrick. The Council didn't just give them mining rights, they explicitly authorized the removal of human colonists. Okafor's eyes narrowed. "Distribute that evidence to all our allies and to every news network still operating in Confederation space. Make sure the unedited documents reach Confederation citizen groups on all major worlds." An alert chimed on her private terminal. "The secondary coalition members are making their move," she announced. 17 more species have just announced their withdrawal from the Confederation, citing the treatment of humanity and evidence of Council corruption. The Confederation was fracturing exactly as planned, not through military force, but through the exposure of its own corrupt foundations. "Director?" A communications specialist called urgently. "We're detecting unusual activity at the Confederation's weapons research facility in the Arcturus system. energy signatures consistent with Omega-class weaponry. Okafor felt a cold knot form in her stomach. The Council was getting desperate faster than anticipated. Notify Admiral Donovan. Tell him we may need to accelerate the timeline for Phase 3, DO. Ambassador Alara. Voss moved through the shadowy corridors of the abandoned Confederation embassy on Earth. After her dramatic exit from the Council chamber, she had been extracted by special forces and returned to Earth through channels unknown to the Confederation. Now, as humanity's withdrawal strategy unfolded across the galaxy, she had one more critical role to play. The secure communication chamber activated as she entered, scanning her biometrics and quantum neural patterns, a security measure that confirmed she wasn't under duress or mind control, technologies the Confederation had employed against human diplomats in the past. The holographic projector hummed to life, and 7 figures appeared, representatives of the species who had allied with humanity in secret over the past decades. The so-called minor races, who had suffered similar exploitation by the Confederation elite. The Vex fleet has been neutralized, she informed them. And we've intercepted the Drell forces sent against Procyon. The evidence of Council complicity has been distributed. The response on our worlds has been immediate, reported the Tellarite ambassador, his tusked face solemn. Public demonstrations against Confederation governance have begun in every major city. Similar uprisings on Belta Prime added the crystalline entity representing the Vir Collective. Our people have seized the Confederation administrative centers. One by one, they reported similar developments, the carefully laid groundwork of years of preparation bearing fruit as citizens across the galaxy learned how their trust had been betrayed. The Council has called for an emergency vote to authorize use of Omega weapons against Earth, warned the Serpentine representative of the SL Communion. Our intelligence suggests they have the votes. Alara nodded gravely. We've detected activity at the Arcturus facility. It's time to implement the final phase of our strategy. Is everyone prepared for what comes next? 7 faces, representing species as different from each other as they were from humans, all showed their cultural expressions of agreement. Then let's end this, Alara said quietly. Not just for humanity, but for every species that has suffered under their rule. Councillor Jemba stood before the emergency session of the full council, his skin patterns displaying the formal coloration of protest. Around the chamber, representatives from 2,000 species watched as the government that had ruled the galaxy for millennia teetered on the brink of collapse. The motion before this council, intoned High Councillor Zirvax, is to authorize the deployment of Omega-class weapons against the Sol system in response to humanity's hostile actions against Confederation peace. Jemba stepped forward. Before this vote proceeds, I must present evidence relevant to this decision. The time for debate has passed, Councillor Merrick snapped. The humans have attacked our fleets, disabled our infrastructure, and incited rebellion. They must be made an example of. What the Honorable Councillor fails to mention, Jemba countered, his voice resonating through the chamber, is his direct authorization for the Drell Consortium to eliminate human colonies in the Procyon sector. The chamber erupted in shocked exclamations as Jemba projected the intercepted documents for all to see. Furthermore, he continued, once the noise subsided, I have obtained copies of the original treaty with Earth, including the secret annexes planning their eventual subjugation. High Councillor Zirvax rose in fury. These documents are classified. Their disclosure is treason, and perhaps, and Jemba agreed calmly. But as 17 member species have already withdrawn from the Confederation today, with more announcing their departure by the hour, I believe transparency is now more important than protocol. The chamber doors slid open and a group of security officers entered, weapons at ready. Councillor Jemba, announced their leader. You are under arrest for treason against the Confederation. Jemba faced them without fear. I expected as much. But you should know, this session is being broadcast live to every world in the Confederation. The emergency protocols preventing transmission were disabled an hour ago. Throughout the chamber, delegates turned to each other in shock. For the first time in Confederation history, the inner workings of the Council, its arguments, its corruption, Its willingness to sacrifice entire populations was being witnessed by the very citizens it claimed to protect. The vote on deploying Omega weapons proceeds, insisted Zirvax, even as the guards moved to take Jemba into custody. But around the chamber, delegates began to stand one by one, then in groups, then in waves, turning their backs on the High Council in the traditional gesture of no confidence. Talon Reed crouched in the maintenance tunnels beneath the Arcturus weapons facility, watching the patrol patterns of the security forces after his narrow escape from Centauri Prime. He had been reassigned to the most critical mission of the entire operation, ensuring that the Omega weapons could never be used. No matter how the Council voted, team in position, whispered the voice of Captain Lena Wolf, commander of the infiltration squad accompanying him, waiting for your signal. Create file description, creating part 3 of the HFY sci-fi story, path, home, Claude, part 3.md, file, text, humanity withdraws from diplomacy, throwing the Galaxy Council into chaos, part 3. The ancient hall of records on Centauri Prime stood silent and empty, its normal complement of archivists and researchers evacuated during the growing crisis. Through the darkness moved a single figure, Professor Lydia Montrose, Earth's foremost xenoarchaeologist and the only human ever granted access to the Confederation's most closely guarded historical archives. She hadn't evacuated with the others. There was something here she needed to find before the Confederation collapsed completely. The Central Archive terminal hummed to life as she bypassed the security systems using access codes provided by Talon Reed before his mission to Arcturus. The holographic interface expanded around her, displaying the directory of historical records spanning 20,000 years of galactic history. Computer, she commanded, or access pre-Confederation records, specifically first contact protocols with new species between years 15,000 and 16,000 R. The system hesitated, then displayed a warning. Access restricted by Council Directive 3371X. Lydia smiled grimly and entered the override sequence, a combination that had cost 3 human agents their lives to obtain. The screen flickered, and suddenly thousands of records appeared, records that had been hidden from public access for millennia. Search term, Human, Earth, Terra, Sol System. The results appeared instantly, 347 matches. Lydia stared in disbelief. According to official Confederation history, humanity had made first contact just 3 centuries ago when Confederation scouts discovered Earth. But these records, she opened the first file, dated approximately 15,300 years before present. It contained detailed observations of early human civilization, noting their unusual adaptive capabilities and concerning rate of technological development. The report recommended containment protocols to ensure humans remained isolated from the galactic community. File after file documented centuries of secret monitoring of Earth, culminating in a classified Council directive from 14,800 years ago. Project Isolation, a coordinated effort to deliberately suppress human development through targeted intervention. They've been watching us all along, she whispered, manipulating our development, keeping us isolated. The final document in the sequence made her blood run cold, a genetic analysis comparing modern humans with samples taken 15,000 years earlier. The conclusion was unambiguous. Humans had been engineered, their genomes subtly modified by Confederation scientists to limit certain cognitive abilities. Lydia's hands trembled as she transmitted the entire archive to Director Okafor. This wasn't just evidence of Confederation corruption. It was proof of a conspiracy spanning millennia. A soft chime alerted her to movement in the outer chamber. Security forces. Her time was up. As footsteps approached, she activated the final protocol on her communicator, a targeted data burst that would send copies of these revelations to academic institutions across the galaxy. The truth about humanity's engineered isolation would not remain buried any longer. The Emergency Command Center, beneath Geneva, hummed with activity as Director Imani Okafor reviewed Professor Montrose's discoveries. With growing fury, they engineered us, she said, her voice tight with controlled rage. Modified our ancestors to develop more slowly, to think within certain parameters. And then they watched us for 15,000 years, interfering whenever we began to advance too quickly. Thomas Reeves studied the genetic analysis with a scientist's precision, and the modifications were subtle but significant, primarily affecting certain neural pathways associated with technological innovation and psychic potential. And yet we overcame them, Okafor noted. Over centuries, our natural evolution began to bypass their restrictions. That's why they finally made official contact. They couldn't keep us contained any longer. And why they've been so desperate to control our development since joining the Confederation, added Ambassador Ilara, who had joined them via secure holographic link. They recognized we were breaking free of their programming. Okafor turned to the tactical display showing the status of humanity's withdrawal strategy. The Confederation was fracturing faster than anticipated, with nearly 60 species now having suspended their membership or withdrawn entirely. This changes our approach, she decided. And we're no longer just withdrawing from a corrupt institution. We're exposing a conspiracy against our species that spans millennia. Activate the Phase 4 communications protocol. Every human world needs to know the truth. An urgent alert flashed on the main screen. Director, called a communications officer. We're detecting unusual activity at the Procyon colonies. A fleet of unidentified vessels has just appeared near the outer planet. They're not responding to Hale's Confederation reinforcements, Okafor asked sharply, and negative. These ships match no known Confederation design, and they're jamming all communication with the colonies. Okafor exchanged a troubled glance with Ambassador Ilara. Get Admiral Donovan. We may have an unexpected complication. Admiral Donovan studied the sensor data from Procyon with growing concern. The unidentified vessels had taken up position around all 3 human colony worlds and deployed smaller craft to the surface. No communication at all? He asked. None, sir, Commander Rivera reported. They're blocking all signals to and from the surface. We've lost contact with the colonies entirely. Analysis of their ship design? The science officer stepped forward. Sir, based on the limited data we've received, these vessels appear to match fragmentary records of a species called the Archivers, a race believed extinct for at least 5,000 years. To the Archivers? Donovan frowned. But what do we know about them? Very little, sir. They predated the Confederation. According to legend, they were obsessed with collecting and preserving knowledge from across the galaxy. A new transmission alert sounded, and the communications officer turned in surprise. Admiral, we're receiving a signal from the unidentified fleet. Text only, directed specifically to Earth Command, dock and on screen. Donovan ordered. The message appeared. Written in perfect English. We have watched. We have waited. The time of reconciliation approaches. Prepare your representatives. Send a response. Donovan instructed after a moment of stunned silence. Ask who they are and what they want with our colonies. The reply came almost instantly. We are the custodians. We hold the truth of your origins. The colonies are unharmed. They are merely isolated until verification is complete. Donovan's tactical officer leaned closer. Sir, if these really are the Archivers or their descendants, the implications are staggering. They were said to possess technology far beyond even the Confederation's capabilities. And they've chosen now to return. Donovan mused. Just as we're forcing a confrontation with the Confederation over their manipulation of our species. He turned to his communications officer, a contact director Okafor. Tell her we need to accelerate the final phase of our strategy. The game has changed. High Counselor Sirvax huddled with the remaining members of the Inner Council in their secure bunker beneath the Confederation capital. Of the 7 who had once ruled the galaxy unchallenged, only 4 remained. The others had fled as public uprising spread across the capital world. The situation is untenable, reported Security Director Vazin, his holographic form flickering with interference. 63 member species have now formally withdrawn from the Confederation. Another 42 have suspended participation pending reforms. We've lost control of 17 major worlds to popular uprisings. And the Omega weapons, demanded Counselor Marek, compromised. Our technicians report that the targeting systems have been fundamentally altered. They can no longer be aimed at populated worlds. Zirvax slammed a translucent appendage against the conference table. How is this possible? How could the humans have penetrated our most secure facility? And the evidence suggests they've had agents embedded throughout our infrastructure for decades. Vazin replied grimly. Possibly centuries. What about the human colonies in Procyon? So asked Counselor Tavlor. Our observers report unusual activity in that sector. Again unconfirmed, Vazin said. All communication with the Procyon sector has been lost, but preliminary scans detected energy signatures consistent with Archiver technology. A stunned silence fell over the chamber. Impossible, whispered Tavlor. The Archivers have been extinct for millennia. Perhaps not extinct, countered Zirvax, his voice suddenly thoughtful. Perhaps merely waiting. For what? And for this moment. Zirvax activated the central display showing the spreading chaos throughout Confederation space. When our authority would be challenged. When the truths we've buried would begin to surface. He turned to his fellow counselors, his translucent form pulsing with agitation. The humans were always the key. That's why our ancestors were so careful to keep them isolated, to modify their development. They knew what would happen if humans ever discovered their true heritage. What are you talking about? Merrick demanded. Create file description. Creating Part 4 of the HFY sci-fi story. Pathire, Home, Claude, Part 4 MD file. Text. Humanity withdraws from diplomacy, throwing the Galaxy Council into chaos. Part 4. The diplomatic shuttle carrying High Counselor Zirvax approached Earth under heavy escort. Not the Grand Confederation flagship that would have once announced his arrival, but a simple vessel borrowed from a neutral species. 6 human interceptors surrounded it, weapons locked but powered down, a message both of caution and restraint. In the observation lounge of Orbital Platform Alpha, Director Imani Okafor waited with Ambassador Ilara Voss and a small team of advisors. No grand reception, no ceremonial honor guard. The most powerful being in the galaxy would be received as what he now was, a representative of a failing power-seeking terms. He's alone, reported the security chief, monitoring the shuttle's approach. No staff, no security detail. Our scans confirmed just the pilot and Zirvax himself. Okafor nodded. Interesting choice. Either a show of trust or desperation. Both, most likely, Ilara suggested. The Confederation capital fell to protesters yesterday. The Inner Council has lost control of their own homeworld. The shuttle docked with careful precision, and after a brief decontamination protocol, the doors slid open to reveal High Counselor Zirvax. Without his ceremonial light shroud and formal regalia, he seemed smaller somehow, a being of translucent tissue and delicate appendages vulnerable and exposed. Director Okafor, Ambassador Voss. His voice translator produced perfect English, but the tone was subdued. I appreciate your willingness to meet. An interesting reversal, Okafor observed coolly. 3 days ago, you were voting to authorize Omega weapons against Earth. Today you come seeking. What exactly? Zirvax's form rippled, a gesture that might have indicated discomfort or resignation. I come seeking to prevent further bloodshed. The Confederation as it has existed for 20 millennia is finished. We both know this. But how it ends will determine whether the galaxy descends into chaos or transitions to something new. And suddenly you care about an orderly transition? Ilara asked, her diplomatic reserve cracking slightly. After what your ancestors did to humanity? After what you personally authorized against our colonies? I deserve your anger, Zirvax acknowledged. But this is larger than any one species now. The Archivers have returned. A tense silence fell over the room. You know about the Archivers, Okafor stated, watching him carefully. Of course we know. The Confederation's founding secret, its original sin, was what we did to the alliance of Archiver and human 16,000 years ago. My ancestors overthrew a peaceful coalition and replaced it with our hierarchical empire. They drove the Archivers into hiding and, He hesitated. And genetically crippled humanity, then isolated us on our homeworld. Ilara finished for him. Yes, we know. The question is, why are you telling us this now? Zirvax moved to the observation window, gazing out at the Earth rotating serenely below. Because the Archivers didn't just contact you, they've reached out to every species that has withdrawn from the Confederation. They're proposing a grand gathering, a new constitutional convention at the ruins of the old Alliance headquarters. And this concerns you why? Okafor pressed. The Confederation has lost its authority. What happens next is no longer your concern. And it concerns me, Zirvax said quietly, because I believe in the ideal of the Confederation, if not its corrupt reality. A galaxy united, species working together, knowledge shared. That was the promise, even if the execution was flawed by power and greed. He turned back to face them. The Archivers seek vengeance for what was done to them and to you. They will use this gathering to ensure the Confederation's complete destruction and the disgrace of all species who led it, including mine. And perhaps that's justice, Ilara suggested coldly. Perhaps, but vengeance rarely builds stable foundations. What rises from these ashes must be better than what came before, not simply its mirror image with different species in power. Okafor studied the former High Counselor thoughtfully. You want a seat at this gathering. You want your species represented in whatever comes next. I want a chance to atone, Zirvax corrected. And I bring something in exchange for that opportunity. From within his translucent form, he produced a small crystalline object, a data storage device of incredibly ancient design. This contains the complete uncorrupted archives of the original Human Archiver Alliance, he said, including the genetic keys to reverse what was done to your species 16,000 years ago. Admiral Marcus Donovan stood on the bridge of the EDF Sentinel, watching the sensor display with cautious fascination as his fleet approached the coordinates provided by the Archivers. According to all star charts, there should be nothing here, just empty space in an unremarkable sector far from any inhabited systems. Yet as they drew closer, sensors began to detect massive structures, a sprawling space station or habitat larger than Earth's moon, previously hidden by technology far beyond Confederation capabilities. Receiving transmission from the Archiver vessel, Admiral Yai, reported the communications officer. They're providing docking instructions. Around the Sentinel, ships from dozens of other species were converging on the hidden station, former Confederation members responding to the Archiver's call for a new beginning. "Any life signs?" Donovan asked. Sensors detect approximately 10,000 Archivers aboard the station, the science officer replied. And something else. Unusual energy patterns throughout the structure, similar to neural networks but vastly more complex. Commander Rivera studied the readings with a frown. Could the station itself be alive? Or a repository of some kind, Donovan suggested, remembering the fragmentary records describing the Archiver's obsession with preserving knowledge. Proceed with docking procedures but maintain alert status. I want security teams ready but not obvious. We're here in peace, but we're not being naive. As the Sentinel maneuvered toward its assigned docking port, Donovan received a priority message from Earth, Director Okafor informing him of Zirvax's unexpected visit and the shocking offer he had brought with him. Genetic keys, Donovan murmured, processing the implications. They didn't just isolate us and reset our technological development. They locked away our potential at the genetic level. And sir? Rivera questioned. Donovan shook his head slightly. Nothing. Just wondering what humanity might have become without 16,000 years of engineered limitations. He straightened his uniform. And what we might become without them. The great assembly hall within the Archiver station echoed with the voices of 100 different species, former Confederation members who had answered the call to build something new from the ashes of the old order. Holographic translators ensured every word was understood by all, regardless of physical communication methods. Ambassador Ilara Voss led the human delegation, With Admiral Donovan and a small team of advisors at her side, Director Okafor had remained on Earth to manage the continuing withdrawal strategy and, more controversially, to continue discussions with Shirvax about his unexpected proposal. At the center of the vast circular chamber stood Curator Jolarin, the archiver representative who had first contacted the Procyon colonies. Around him gathered other archivers, their iridescent forms shifting with colors that seemed to communicate emotions and thoughts beyond what their translated words conveyed. "We welcome you all to the repository," Jolarin began, its harmonious voice filling the chamber. "For 16,000 years, we have preserved the knowledge and wisdom of the original alliance that once united this galaxy in peace and mutual respect. Now, as the corrupt Confederation crumbles, we offer this knowledge to you, the free species who have chosen independence." Murmurs rippled through the assembly as massive holographic displays activated, showing historical records of a galactic society predating the Confederation, a civilization of remarkable technological achievement and apparent harmony. The Archiver Human Alliance, Jolarin continued, was founded on principles of equal representation, mutual defense, and shared knowledge. Unlike the hierarchical confederation that replaced it, no species dominated another. Each contributed according to their abilities and received according to their needs, and yet it fell, noted the representative from the Tellarite worlds. Overthrown by the founders of the Confederation. It fell because it was trusting, Jolarin acknowledged, compound eyes gleaming. We did not anticipate betrayal from within. The militaristic species that would become the Confederation's founding members exploited our openness, studied our defenses, and struck with coordination and cruelty that we had never imagined possible. The displays shifted to show scenes of ancient conflict, massive fleets engaging in battle, planetary bombardments, scenes of devastation that made even veteran military officers like Donovan flinch. The archivers were driven to the brink of extinction, Jolarin said solemnly. We retreated to this hidden repository, preserving what remained of our civilization and knowledge, and humanity. Its gaze turned to Alara and the human delegation. Humanity paid perhaps the heaviest price of all. Create MUC file description. Creating Part 5 of the HFY sci-fi story. Path, Home, Claude, Part 5.md file. Text. Humanity withdraws from diplomacy, throwing the Galaxy Council into chaos. Part 5 Admiral Marcus Donovan studied the data transmitted from Earth with growing concern. Around him in the secure communication room aboard the Sentinel, his most trusted officers reviewed different segments of the massive file, the complete uncorrupted archives Shirvax had brought to Earth. This contradicts significant portions of the archiver's historical narrative, Commander Rivera noted, comparing the records. According to these files, the original alliance wasn't the utopia they've described. There were significant power imbalances and exploitation, particularly in the later periods. And the conflict that led to its fall wasn't a simple betrayal, added the science officer, Lieutenant Park. It was a complex civil war with atrocities committed by both sides. Donovan frowned, absorbing the implications. The archivers have been selectively editing history to cast themselves as blameless victims and humanity as their perfect allies. But the genetic tampering of humans was real, Rivera pointed out. That part is confirmed by both accounts. Yes, but with a critical difference. Donovan highlighted a section of the data. According to these records, humans weren't just the archivers' allies. We were their creations. A species they engineered from primitive primates to serve as perfect companions and auxiliaries. The genetic shackles weren't imposed by the early Confederation, they were a reversion toward our natural state after the artificial enhancements. The room fell silent as the officers processed this revelation. So neither side has been telling us the complete truth, Rivera said finally, which means our path forward can't be based on either version of history, Donovan concluded. We need to forge something new, something based on present choices rather than ancient grievances or debts. He turned to his communications officer. Prepare a secure channel to Ambassador Voss, and alert all human security personnel aboard the station to standby status. I have a feeling things are about to become complicated. In her private quarters adjacent to the assembly hall, Ambassador Alara Voss received Admiral Donovan's transmission with remarkable calm, given its earth-shattering contents. "You're certain this data is authentic?" she asked, reviewing the key points on her secure tablet. "Director Okafor has verified it through multiple methods," Donovan's holographic form replied. "The quantum signature patterns are consistent with authentic Confederation archives, and Zirvax has submitted to psychic verification from 3 different telepathic species." Alara closed her eyes briefly, integrating this new information with everything she had learned since humanity's dramatic withdrawal from the Confederation. "So we have 3 competing narratives," she summarized. "The Confederation claims the ancient alliance was corrupt and had to be overthrown for the greater good. The archivers claim they and humanity were innocent victims of Confederation betrayal. And now these archives suggest a messier truth, that the archivers created humanity through genetic engineering, the alliance was flawed, and the conflict that destroyed it was a complex civil war rather than a simple coup. In history is rarely as clean as the victors, or the victims, would have us believe," Donovan observed. "Indeed, Ilara's expression was thoughtful. "But the critical question isn't what happened 16,000 years ago. It's what happens now. The archivers are positioning themselves as the rightful leaders of whatever replaces the Confederation," Donovan said. "Based on historical grievances and their supposed special relationship with humanity. A relationship they've significantly misrepresented," Ilara noted. "They didn't just ally with us, they made us, and now they want to use us to legitimize their return to power." She rose, smoothing her diplomatic uniform with practiced precision. "It's time for humanity to define its own path forward. One based on neither ancient debts nor grievances, but on the principles we believe will create a better future for all species." "What are you planning?" Donovan asked. "The truth," Ilara replied simply. "All of it, presented to the entire assembly. Let all species decide with full information what kind of galactic community they wish to build." The assembly reconvened amidst growing tension. The initial unity of purpose that had brought these diverse species together was fracturing as factions began to form. Those who supported the archivers' vision of restoration, those who favored a completely new approach, and those who remained uncertain. Curator Zolaran stood at the center of the chamber, its iridescent form pulsing with colors that suggested impatience. "We have provided the historical context for our gathering. Now we must proceed to establishing the framework for our new alliance. The archivers propose a council-based governance structure, with proportional representation based on each species' technological and cultural development." Ambassador Ilara stepped forward. "Before we proceed, there is additional information that must be shared with this assembly. Information that significantly alters the historical context we have been given." Zolaran's colors darkened. What information could possibly be relevant after 16,000 years of Confederation oppression? "And the complete truth about the relationship between humans and archivers," Ilara replied calmly. "And about the fall of the original alliance." She activated her own data crystal, and the chamber's holographic systems displayed the records provided by Zirvax, unedited and uncensored. These archives, verified as authentic by multiple independent methods, tell a different story than the one we've heard, she explained, her voice carrying throughout the vast space. "They show that humanity wasn't simply an ally of the archivers. We were created by them, engineered from primitive species on Earth to serve as companions and auxiliaries." Murmurs of shock rippled through the assembly. Furthermore, they show that the original alliance, while more equitable than the Confederation in many ways, was still fundamentally hierarchical, with the archivers and their created companions enjoying privileges denied to other species. Zolaran moved forward aggressively. "These are Confederation forgeries, propaganda designed to divide us, and then submit to the same psychic verification that High Counselor Shirvax underwent to authenticate these records," Ilara challenged. The archiver's colors fluctuated rapidly, patterns cascading across its form in what seemed to be agitation or alarm. "We do not subject ourselves to invasive procedures," it stated finally. Ilara turned to address the entire assembly. We are not here to assign blame for events that occurred 16,000 years ago. We are here to build something new. But we cannot build on a foundation of partial truths and manipulated history. She gestured to the holographic display, which now showed 3 different versions of the ancient conflict: the Confederation's account, the Archiver's narrative, and the more complex reality suggested by the uncensored archives. What matters is not who was right or wrong in ancient conflicts, but what we choose to create now. Humanity withdrew from the Confederation because we rejected a system built on hierarchy, exploitation, and control. We will not support replacing it with another system based on those same principles, regardless of which species benefits. Throughout the chamber, representatives began to murmur in agreement. The human delegation proposes a different approach, Ilara continued, and not a restoration of either the Confederation or the Ancient Alliance, but something genuinely new. A galactic association of equal members with protections for minority rights, transparent governance, and shared responsibility. She turned to face Zolaran directly. We invite the Archivers to join this association as equals, neither as overlords claiming ancient authority, nor as victims demanding restitution, but as fellow travelers looking toward the future rather than the past. The Archiver's colors had stabilized into a deep, cold blue. You would deny us our rightful place after all we have suffered? No one denies your suffering, Ilara replied gently, just as no one denies the suffering of countless species under Confederation rule. But healing comes not from replacing one hierarchy with another, but from breaking the cycle entirely. Throughout the chamber, delegates began to voice support for the human proposal. Even species that had initially aligned with the Archivers were reconsidering in light of the newly revealed information. Zolaran's form seemed to contract slightly. You have turned them against us. After all we did for your kind, and you created us, Ilara acknowledged. But we have become more than our creators intended. Perhaps that is the greatest gift you gave us, the capacity to evolve beyond our original purpose. She extended her hand, a human gesture of reconciliation. Join us as equals in building something better than either the Alliance or the Confederation. Let the past inform us, but not define us. For a long moment, the Archiver remained motionless, its compound eyes unreadable. Then slowly it extended one of its multiple limbs to touch Ilara's outstretched hand. Perhaps, Sherwood said finally, your evolution is not limited to biological forms. Perhaps ideas and institutions can evolve as well.